We have had some technical problems.
Hit it!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How are you? Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate you checking out my podcast. You know, one of the things I enjoyed about being in the media in Kalamazoo was working with and for all the sports teams. At one point, I did something for pretty much every team that was in town during my time on the radio. My favorite was the Kalamazoo Wings, and I had been a fan since they started in 1974. I was just 11 then. So when I became a radio sports director and an announcer and a host, I, of course, covered them. I've had some pretty good times with them over the years, especially in the 90s. And the team that's there now is corporately owned, and I have no affiliation or contact with anyone with that team. I really didn't like how they fired a bunch of people a few years ago, and I probably will not support them in the future. So I'll talk about the K-Wings when it was fun to go to their games back in the 90s when I covered them extensively. I had lots of fun. Before we had kids, you know, you could do whatever you want, whenever you wanted, and I did. I worked a lot. I'd go to most of their home games, talk with players and coaches afterwards, and use those interviews for my talk show or my morning show sports reports. In the early 90s, Mike Miller was their play-by-play guy. He was cool. He filled in for me a few times while I was away from the radio show. He told me at one point he was going to put together some TV games to air on Sports Channel at the time, mostly road games, so K-Wings fans could see their team while they were on the road. So he did the play-by-play, and Neil Meadmore with his... Neil Meadmore, former K-Wing, was his color analyst. I was the guy who interviewed players in between periods. I believe we did Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Fort Wayne, Peoria, and I think we also did one home game at that time. It was fun to do live TV. I appreciated the opportunity. And then soon after that, Mike got the call from the New Jersey Devils to become their radio announcer, and I was bummed when he left. We once relived the famous puck push contest on the ice in between periods at a K-Wings game. WKMI Radio had done it years before, and I decided to revive it. It was basically some contestants on their hands and knees pushing a puck with their nose from one end of the ice to the other. Somewhere I have a photo of our winner with a bloody face. I once thought it would be cool to do a promotion where I did a long run on the ice starting at one end and slid head... I once thought it would be cool to do a promotion where I did a very long run on the ice and would slide headfirst into the net at the other end. So we did it. I can't remember the reason. I can't remember what the deal was or what the prize was or if there even was a prize. But I started at one end, slid headfirst into the net at the other. Well, the first time I tried it, it wasn't slippery enough, and I didn't make it into the net. So we had to have the Zamboni come out, make it all slick and watery, and I did it again, ended up getting into the net, and not the best execution of a promotion, and a flop by my standards. Another time we did a morning show live from the stadium to promote the St. Patrick's Day Green Ice game, which was a pretty famous deal. And near the end of that morning, just before the players started coming out for practice, I got dressed up as a goalie, and they put a mic on me, and I took shots from the players. I told them to go easy, of course, but I did get dinged a couple of times. You know, those guys won't listen. I was also the PA announcer for the K-Wings a couple of different times, including during the season when they won a championship in 2006. I ended up getting a ring for that, and although it's not a real ring with diamonds and everything, it's in an enclosed case, has my name on it, and I love it. And I thank Paul Picard for that. I was also the announcer for the first season with their giant scoreboard that they currently have. That was chaotic. They basically would air the game on the video screen with cameras like you'll see at a big NHL game. And there was a lot of coordination that had to happen, including with me. I liked it because they hired somebody else to do interviews in between periods and host the goofy contests that they would have and get the crowd fired up. That was not my thing. I didn't like being the announcer who had to get the crowd fired up, especially when it was, 6-2 and they were losing in the third period. One of the weirdest things that ever happened was when a guy named Brian Smith was the K-Wings radio play-by-play guy, and he invited me on to join him for a game. I told him beforehand, the people who own the radio station are not going to be happy that you're going to have me on. He said, don't worry about it, just be there. So I got there. I had a little bit of a sore throat. I showed up, took my seat, grabbed the headphones. We did a little chit-chat for about 10 minutes. Then the phone rang. and Brian was told to get me off the air now. The radio station that aired the games was not happy that a competing radio guy was on the air, and I don't blame him. So over the years, I've gotten to know a bunch of players and coaches and people associated with the team, and there are plenty who still live here in Kalamazoo. Players like Neil Meadmore, Brian McDavid, Laurie Nisker. There are more. Some of my favorite players over the years: Neil Brady was a great guy, Tim Lenardon, Corey Carlander, Nick Bootland, Marty Turco, Derek Smith. All those guys were great to me. Whenever I wanted an interview, those were the go-to guys. Coaches like Ken Hitchcock, who was great. I spent a lot of time with him after games, before games. We had a few post-game beers in his office. You got to remember, there wasn't a lot of media in Kalamazoo covering the K-Wings. It was basically myself and Pam Shebest from the Kalamazoo Gazette. Steve Doherty was a mainstay with the team for many years and was responsible for so much of their success. Bill Inglis was a great guy who was their general manager for a while. I got to know him. Also, former NHLer Bill Goldsworthy, who was a legend. He was a consultant with the team for a while. Got to know him as well. Lots of fun at Wing Stadium over the years. I missed those years. It was so much fun and an honor to be part of that great team for many, many years. Glad I was there. Hey, thanks for listening. I'd appreciate it very much. I'll see you next time.